At the same time at Jiangnan's main base, the ground began to shake. Gu Kaishan and Duanfeng panicked. They couldn't help but wonder alarmedly what was happening upon hearing the noises coming from underground, fearing that the earth was collapsing. They immediately suspected that Jiang Chen must be wreaking havoc by proliferating the offspring of the 9 miasma wings in the abyss, and were worried about the idea that he might have lost control over the insects. Duanfeng's eyes filled with fear and concern, and he asked old Gu if he knew what was going on. He insisted urgently that they should alert more people and call Jai Jianchen immediately. In contrast to his panic, Gu Kaishan, with a calm look, began to draw his sword. While his eyes were shining with seriousness, he used his power and forcefully stabbed his sword into the ground, asking Duanfeng to leave, promising to stay behind to protect the base. Upon hearing this, Duanfeng turned around and started running. Poisonous mist began to emerge from the ground, and Gu Kaishan's attention was fixed on it. He immediately recognized that it was the aura of the abyss. He realized that the number of insects must already exceed 100 million. He remembered how the figure had previously jumped from 8 to 80 million. And he wondered if now it had multiplied by 10 once again. The terrifying conclusion hit him. 800 million. It was a truly terrifying figure. Not long after, Jai Lingku arrived at the base and while flying, used his powers to create a soundproofing barrier around the city. Then, he descended to the ground and landed behind Gu Kaishan, demanding that he tell him the truth. He wanted to know how many insects Jiang Chen currently had, as he confessed that even for him, the vibration coming from underground was giving him goosebumps. While Gu Kaishan's eyes were shining with fear, he began to gaze toward the ground in silence, not knowing what to say. While insects were emerging from the ground, he turned around and noticed that the vibrations from underground had disappeared. He then realized, with astonishment, that Jiang Chen had managed to control them all, a fact that seemed incredible to him. With a serious expression, Jai Lingku began to stare at him intently. He demanded that he inform him of the situation, explaining that after the Great Tianyuan tournament, it was very likely that Daxia and the 3 overseas islands would go to war. He reminded him that the insects were one of Daxia's hidden cards, and the sooner they knew their status, the better they could plan. He concluded by insisting that he really couldn't keep hiding this information from him any longer. Gu Kaishan put his hand on his chin, turned his head to one side and with a nervous gaze revealed that Jiang Chen had 800 million insects. Jai Lingku's attention was fixed on him, his eyes filled with fear and astonishment. He could not believe that this was true. Gu Kaishan explained that this was an estimate. While they were distracted, Jiang appeared and while his body was surrounded by a powerful aura, he began to walk toward them and greeted his master announcing that he had returned, and also noticed the presence of Jai Lingku. He mentioned that he had seen the streets were quite chaotic and that the city's defensive formation had already been activated, so he asked what had happened. Upon hearing our boy's voice, Jai Lingku's eyes widened in fear. Gu Kaishan's attention focused on Jiang and his eyes began to shine with seriousness. With a serene gaze, Jiang began to approach them. His aura was like that of a monster. Gu Kaishan watched him. He could not believe that Jiang still had the audacity to ask what had happened. He realized that although there was no energy fluctuation in Jiang Chen, his own spirit was vibrating with such intensity that he even felt an overwhelming urge to submit before him. Jai Lingku turned around and asked Jiang if he knew what destiny rank pressure was. Jiang became confused since he did not know. As the wind blew around them, Jai Lingku revealed to him that destiny rank pressure was a suppression that could be exerted on an opponent without needing to use any energy. He explained that this kind of existence had already transcended the destiny rank, and although it wasn't certain whether it was a god or something else, he added one crucial fact. 400 years ago, when the human emperor met his fate, it was precisely an entity of that level who had intervened. He began to imagine the scene, Jiang Xuanji in the caverns, during the beast tide of Chujiang. He remembered how the war god, enraged, led the god-slayer army out to ravage the demon city. In front of them stood an old hooded man, who extended his hand and, with shining eyes, summoned a powerful red symbol. Jai Lingku recalled that just with the appearance of that mark from the void, both he and the dreamer had felt a deep fear. Jiang's eyes filled with seriousness upon realizing that although his 80 billion insects seemed invincible among humans, in the underground caverns there were still many forces capable of confronting them. He understood that their main weakness was that most of his insects were only at level 1. Jiang approached them and, with a curious look, asked why that powerful member of the demon clan had not attacked Jiang Xuanji. He wondered if it meant he was subject to some kind of restriction or binding. Jai Lingku's eyes began to shine with seriousness. He extended his hand and asked Jiang Chen if he knew why in the list of divine weapons the maximum only reached up to the 6th level, and whether this was also due to some kind of limit or restriction. A powerful portal began to manifest, and Jai Lingku revealed that this limit was called Seal of the Heavenly Path, and had been created with the beginning of a new era to maintain a certain balance. He began to imagine 3 powerful swords, explaining that, for example, the Human Emperor sword, which occupied first place in the ranking of divine weapons, actually far surpassed level 6, but due to the current seal could only manifest its power up to that level. Jiang began to imagine the powerful warriors of Daxia. Among them were Jiang Xuanji, Jai Lingku, and the Great Dreamer 400 years ago. With the activation of the Seal of the Heavenly Path, the seal of 9 levels was established. It was then that in Daxia successively were born the Human Emperor, Yan Zun, Sovereign of Fire, and several other powerful figures like them. He began to stare at our boy and revealed that it was also precisely because of the existence of the Seal of the Heavenly Path that beings from 10th grade underground caverns and above could not intervene. He explained that if they acted, they themselves would be destroyed by the Heavenly Path. With a confused expression, Gu Kaishin turned his head towards him and mentioned that although he was not a job changer, it was the first time he had heard about this. Jiang remained listening in silence. Jiang's eyes began to shine with fear. Now he understood why, after the last reproduction, a message had appeared in his system forbidding him to continue. The reason was none other than the existence of the Seal of the Heavenly Path. Jai Lingku extended his hand and summoned a giant sword on the ground. According to him, there were only a few days left until the Great Tianyun competition. He indicated that when the time came, he would depart from the port in the war zone of Demon City, so he asked him to first return with him to meet up. Gu Kaishin nodded his head. Our boy raised his hand and asked Jai Lingku to take him with him. They all mounted on the sword. With a confused gaze, our boy asked Jai Lingku when the Seal of the Heavenly Path for level 10 would be activated. Upon hearing this, he turned around and while his eyes were shining with seriousness, he revealed that the seal was slowly activating. He added that there was a prophecy which said that in 3 months it would be fully active. He turned his back on them and mentioned that, originally, in the Sea of Consciousness of the ancient god, he had found his way to the 10th level, but someone had completely taken it from him. Jiang's eyes widened in surprise and sadness since according to him it was a pity. They began flying through the city. Along the way, Jiang asked what would happen if the seal of the 10th level were fully opened. Gu Kaishin felt curious as he also wanted to know. He revealed that if the seal of the 10th level were fully opened, the divine source in the depths of Kunlun would be completely formed. They began to imagine the ancestral tree, and Jai Lingku explained to them that the divine source was a shortcut to reach the 10th level. He revealed that if the seal of the 10th level were completely opened, the Kunlun divine source tree would immediately produce 10 divine fruits, and afterward, 1 each year. He explained to them that consuming those fruits granted a high probability of allowing them to cross into the 10th level. However, he also warned them about the side effects. By using one of those fruits to achieve advancement, the person would be trapped at that level for life, with no possibility whatsoever of advancing further. It was daytime, and at the same time in Jai residence in Demon City, someone began calling Jiang. It was Jai Xuanyu, who was wearing a red dress. With a cheerful gaze, she began to wave at our boy. Jiang's eyes widened in confusion. He couldn't believe that she was Jai Xuanyu. She closed her eyes and began to show a kind smile. Upon seeing this, Gu Kaishin became enraged and, pointing at her with his finger, told Jai Lingku that the Jai family no longer even showed respect. Jai Lingku, who had his arms behind his back, asked the old man to stop chatting. Kaishin, aware that the great competition was approaching, told them that a bit of relaxation wouldn't hurt but insisted they not forget to take care of their safety. Our boy put his hand over his face and remained silent. Meanwhile, Jai Xuanyu began saying goodbye to Gu Kaishin with her hand and asked him not to worry, assuring her master that Demon City was her territory and therefore nothing would happen to Jiang. Jiang turned to her and, with a confused look, clarified that the old man was not worried about him, but about her, and asked if she understood. Upon hearing this, her eyes widened in surprise and confusion, leaving her in shock. She began to look to the side and with a nervous expression, she didn't know how to express herself. Seeing this, Jiang's mind filled with confusion. Without wasting any more time, she put a ring on Jiang's finger and explained that it was the divine and demonic blood of the gods. She revealed that her great-grandfather had asked her to give it to him. This said ring contained all of the Jai family's inventory, asking him please to accept it with a smile. Jiang began observing her and became confused. He wondered why she was so generous in offering him all the divine and demonic blood, and directly asked what was the condition for such a gift. She put her hands together, and while her eyes were shining with seriousness, she responded with a smile that there were no conditions. She explained that her great-grandfather had said that when he had children, they should carry the Jiang surname, and if he had any left over, it could be seen whether they could carry the Jai surname. She grabbed Jiang's hand, started running, and mentioned that they could talk about it later. She told him to come with her, as she was going to introduce him to some new sisters she had met. Upon hearing this, our boy became somewhat confused. A beautiful woman with a foxtail was sitting in the trunk of the car. Jai Xuanyu revealed that it was Su Kaianqian, the saint of the Kinkyu fox tribe from 10,000 Beast City. It had been her great-grandfather who sought her out to be Jiang's companion in the Great Tianyun tournament, and added that she had already promised him she would take good care of him during the competition. Su Kaianqian's eyes filled with love. She mentioned that she had heard a lot about Jiang from Jai Xuanyu. According to her, he was very young and very handsome. With a nervous smile, Jiang greeted her, and at that moment realized the reason for the change in Jai Xuanyu's behavior. It was all because she had become friends with a fox. Jai Xuanyu asked both of them to get into the car. In addition, she told Jiang that Kaianqian was at the pinnacle of the 6th level, assuring him that her power was not inferior to that of Feng Yun Wuji. With a cheerful expression, she began to show a finger and mentioned that everyone knew he was only at the 3rd level, and participating in the Great Tianyun competition was really a challenge for him. She told him not to put too much pressure on himself, adding that if he couldn't do it, they would simply accept defeat. Jiang remained silent. Kaianqian began to smile and suggested going quickly to the hotel. Jiang got into the car and with a curious expression asked why they had to go to a hotel. Jai Xuanyu began to blush and with a nervous gaze remained silent. Kaianqian revealed that they were heading to Pinglai Island, one of the 3 overseas islands. At the same time, the first celestial prodigy of the Divine Academy of the 3 islands from abroad, Zhu Baishan, was submerged in lava. On his back he had several burns, but it was not due to the lava. At that moment, several bird-shaped monsters began to descend upon him with a murderous gaze. Noticing this, he turned around, and his attention focused on them. He extended his hands and used the eye of the god of fire, causing the lava to begin entering his eye. Then, he used the technique called Fire of Purgatory and launched a powerful burst of energy through his eye toward the monsters, cutting them in half. He stood up and began to observe them carefully. According to him, this power was impressive, since with just one glance he could instantly eliminate a level 6 beast. He regretted that, being only level 6 in the 2nd transformation, he still couldn't fully exploit the power of the eye of the god of fire. However, he was convinced that for the Tianyun competition it would already be enough, as it was a true divine component. He was determined that Jiang Chen's head from Daxia would ultimately be his. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part, then don't forget to subscribe and like the video.